story. You know, I'm a student of Sun Tzu, The Art of War. I have been for over 40 years. There's a particular story of this great general who was living in this fortress, living in a fort. And he was at peace, and 90% of his men were out hunting, gathering food to bring back to the fort. But he noticed afar there was an army coming, and he recognized it was one of his enemies. Although they're at peace, his enemy was charging with a great army. And there was no way that this general could save his fort. So he had an idea. As the enemy was approaching, he went out, sat in the front of his fort, like the front yard, with a lute, just playing music, just as a calm day. He had one of those little Asian fly swatters, you know, look like a tail, and he's like, you know, knocking the flies away and playing his lute, just enjoying the day. And he had one of the page boys come out and just sweeping around. So he's just taking it easy, chilling, playing his music, swatting the flies. Page boy out there sweeping. As the enemy approaches, the general of that general stops and looks and observes the scene. And he turns his army around and they retreat. So what happened? This was a wise general. He realized there was no way he could face this enemy. He would lose. But instead he understood the concept of perception versus reality. And he understood strategies in warfare. So he made it seem like he had no worries. He was calm. He was peaceful. And he had no protection. Nothing around him. And the general that was attacking thought, this must be a trap. And he turned it, because nobody would be sitting out there so vulnerable unless they were enticing us to come in so they could destroy us. And that general left. Because the wise general realized that perception, if he could get his enemy to believe that he was being set up for an ambush, he would turn around and retreat. Perception is greater than reality. Understand that all throughout life. Perception is greater than reality. The reality of who you are. Someone that is in a place of authority over you views you in a way that you are not. That is their perception. But having the power over you, the perception they have of you, is the reality that you will have to deal with. Okay? I think that's what was so intense and necessary about the civil rights movement. And so abhorrent to many of us today is that folks had to prove themselves to be equal. And from a vantage point of today, we'll say, well, you know, I don't care how you perceive me. You know, I know that I'm equal. But when you're in an environment where people that have power over your livelihood and even your life, it is important to impress upon them that their perception of you is not reality. And how that plays out today in the workplace, a potential employer, an instructor or a professor or a teacher at school, even your parents, how they respond to you has to do more with their perception of you than the reality of who you are. So it's always important to realize that and not be apathetic, not just blow off, well, who cares what people think about me? No, you can begin to shape folks' perception of you by how you carry yourself. Never be apathetic. Okay? Folks are always watching you. And what's also important is your kids are watching you too, if you have kids. And their perception of you becomes a reality. Oftentimes, maybe as men, we want to portray this macho attitude before our kids without them really seeing the softness or the gentleness that is really a part of you. So that your children's perception of you is not the reality that you are, but their perception of you becomes the reality of what they will be, okay? So that's how it's a perception is greater than reality. And often we live our lives based on our perceptions, not on reality, okay? And so it's very important then to realize that how you carry yourself, how you act, how you walk, the decisions you make, how you speak, how you conduct business, perception is greater than reality. And so use that to recognize, always go that extra mile, always keep yourself sharp, always be cleaned up. Take care of your business. People are watching. Your children are watching. Their perception of you is greater than the reality of who you are. When you grasp that insight, you can control the perception that people have of you, because their perception will be their reality. And see, that can even be used to your advantage in that you might have weaknesses. You might have issues about you that don't quite measure up. But you can present a perception before people so their reality will not even make to them visible your weaknesses. Okay? Is that too deep? I hope not. Perception is greater than reality. How folks perceive you, to them it's reality. But it's not reality. But if they're in a position of power, if they're decision makers, their perception of you is greater than your reality. Okay? And let me take it from another perspective now. Your perception of yourself is greater than reality. And so what I mean by that is you might have strengths. You might have a potential, if you hone that strength, to be something great. But because of your self-perception, your negative self-perception, it's going to beat out the reality of your potential. That's why it's important, even when we raise our children, not to tell them they're ugly, not to tell them they're dumb, but to impress upon them how pretty they are, how handsome they are, and how smart they are, because they will believe that and they will live up to that. Because they are gaining their perception of themselves from you. Okay? And so you might have a child that has the potential to be something great, to be a scientist, to be a doctor, to be something educationally, above the rest. But because they've been battered down, because they've been given the impression, the understanding from the folks that they respect, from the environment they came up in, the perception of who they are is a lot less than their reality. And they will live up to their perception if they've taken the perception of themselves to heart. And so your own perception of you is greater than the reality of your destiny. Okay? And I'm telling you that because look at us. Look at us as human beings. How many of us are failed in life in so many ways? Whether it's dropping out of school, whether it's being addicted to drugs, addicting to alcohol, addicting to life-destroying habits and lifestyles. Why would we do that? Why would we not live to the best of our ability? Why would we not make sure our health is the best possible that it could be? Why would we not make sure that our home life and our family life, our education, or even our work, our finances, all those things that are important, our health is important in life, why do we fall so short? Because we have garnered for ourselves a self-perception that was far less than the potential of our reality. And so what I'm sharing then is it's never too late. Now it's too late to make up for time lost, but it's not too late to positively affect the future. So what I'm sharing with you today, you need to take this to heart. Begin to consider this, meditate on this. What have you bought into? Just look at your life. Sit back and look at your life and determine all of the failings, all of the negatives that are simply a part of you, that you've embraced as being a part of your life. What I want to suggest to you, that was a perception that was false. But somewhere along the line you bought into it and you lived up to that perception, although it was not your reality, the potential that your reality was all about. I see it early. I see it early in life in so many cases where young people are introduced into the drug scene. And maybe because they come up in households where their parents do drugs, their parents smoke weed, their parents get drunk, drink alcohol. And to that child, that is a reality. That is a reality. That's why it's hard to convince someone that their lifestyle is wrong. It's hard to convince someone that their perception of who they are is all off, because that is who you are. That's what you've embraced. This is me. I think, therefore I am, right? But what I'm sharing with you is that the environment young people come up into, their perception of themselves is shaped And often their perception, just about 100% of the time, probably 100% of the time, the perception that a child gains from the environment they came up with is far less than the reality of their destiny. And so what I'm sharing with you first, as parents, we need to recognize this and be careful about what images that we are portraying before our kids. And are the things that we're hiding about ourselves, the things that we're keeping secret, the very important parts that our children need to see, okay? No, we gotta be strong, we gotta be this, we gotta be that. Sometimes it's important for our kids to recognize that we're not just linear. We don't just have one personality trait, and that's hard. Because they're gonna grow up with a false sense. Their perception is not going to equal reality, okay? And so we have children as parents, we need to recognize that it's very important, the images that we present before them, so that their perceptions are closer to reality than not. But I think as well, we need to recognize how we were influenced and who we are as individuals, and are we walking in a perception that is far less than the reality of our potential, okay? And so again, you can't make up for lost time, but you can ensure that a proper perspective of reality will take you to a place where you would not have been if you hadn't had this revelation of your reality, your true reality.